Andrew, standing for the Essex Police Commissioner as a UKIP candidate, why standing?
Well, I'm standing because I think I can contribute something. I think I could make a big difference to this role. This is the first time we've had elected police commissioners anywhere in the country. I think that it's very important that the first police commissioners who are elected do a good job and are seen to do a good job. I do think that the background I've got would enable me to do that, and I'd look forward to doing it.
Do we need a politician telling the police what to do?
Well, any role that's elected is political in that sense, isn't it? And dealing with such a large amount of money and trying to cope with such big budget cuts, it is political. Whether you call it political or not, it is political. The independent candidates like to say, well, we don't want politicians involved, but they are becoming politicians simply by standing for election.
It's a challenging time for Essex Police, isn't it, with the amount of money and the cuts they've got to find. You must have great sympathy for them.
Well, I do. I think that the police service is one of the key services which the country, the state, if you like, the government, provides to people. National defence is the other one, quite obviously. The cuts are very severe, and I don't think they're going to reverse anytime soon. I think that the police will, in Essex and everywhere, will be facing certainly 5 years of very stringent conditions, potentially 10 years.
Out and about in the county, here we are in Averley, in Thurrock, but out and about in the county, what's the issues on the street when you've been speaking to people?
I think the big issues are that people want to see local policing. Now, it's talked about bobbies on the beat, and that's part of it, but that's not all of it. If you close a police station in a particular district, people no longer see the police coming and going. If all of the police end up on an industrial estate somewhere with a very large centre and all the cars parked outside, rushing around at high speed to incidents, that won't be the sort of policing that the public want to see. They want to see the police in the streets so that they can approach them, and indeed so they're confident that the police are approachable and part of the community.
But is that almost harking back to George Dixon? George Dixon would gone by 1976.
Times have changed. Of course times have changed. Of course the police should use motor cars now and not cycles or foot patrols, though foot patrols still have a place in modern policing. There have to be ways of ensuring that the police are still visible to the public, and we need to do that.
I asked a resident about a year ago what their concerns regarding antisocial behaviour here in Thurrock, and they said they felt that there were far too many occasions the police were giving it passing attention and not dealing with it robustly, whereas they feel with drivers it seems to be zero tolerance. Can you understand that resident's concerns?
I do. The police need to learn that the drivers, people who drive cars, are not public enemy number one. They are people going about their daily work. Most people who perhaps exceed the speed limit, for instance, occasionally, don't do so willfully. They don't do so because they're unpleasant people. They do it because the road conditions appeared to allow them to drive a little faster, and maybe they were in a hurry. Now, I'm not saying they shouldn't get caution for that. We all make these mistakes sometimes, and I admit I have done so. But too much attention on simply speeding is not the way to improve road safety. Much of road safety problems are to do with other agencies, like the design of roads being very poor, or dangerous driving at any speed in some districts.
I've interviewed quite a lot of the candidates, and I interviewed someone like Mick Thwaites, 34 years experience in policing. That's the right candidate, isn't it?
Some of the public surveys suggest that is, but if you look at the police today, I don't think that the Chief Constable of Essex Police needs any instruction on how to run the police. I'm seeing him Monday for an interview. He's meeting each of the candidates, and I'm confident that he and his management team know how to run Essex Police. They don't need a police commissioner to tell them how to run their policing. What I think they do need is a police commissioner who can assist them in reconciling their budget cuts. And I'm an accountant. I'm familiar with management practices. I'm familiar with handling and controlling large amounts of money and understanding budgetary procedures. I think they need someone who can bring the police and the public closer together. Now, I don't say that independent candidates can't do that second part of it, but I do claim to be the best qualified of all the candidates on financial matters, which are the key problem for the police this year and for the next few years.
Bring it back into politics for a second. When Margaret Thatcher won in 1979, it was on the back of Law and Order. And at that time, one feels for as long as she was in power, and maybe John Major, that the Conservatives were inextricably linked with Law and Order. And somewhere, this may be a question for the Conservative candidate, but somewhere along the line, it looked like the Conservatives have lost their way with the relationship with the police. Is that something that maybe that you could bring back together?
Well, if you want to talk party politics, I would say the Conservative Party have lost their way on many issues. which is why I left the Conservative Party back in the early 90s. But I'm very proud to be in UKIP. And I do believe if you look at our entire manifesto, you will find that for some years now, we've been making a strong case on a number of law and order criminal justice issues, such as honest sentencing. Why is someone given 5 years and they're out in 2.5? Why not give them 5 years and they serve 5 years? If they misbehave, they get a few months extra. The idea that people can be let out and then go on to re-offend, as I'm afraid so many do during the period when they're out on licence, is unacceptable, and the public find this very confusing.
And there's also stats that Basildon Magistrates Court here is the third most lenient court in the country for convicted burglars. But is that anything can you do anything about that?
Formally, the police commissioner's role is quite tightly limited by law, and quite rightly so in a way. I mean, the police commissioner should not get involved in operational matters. It should not be for the police commissioner to tell constables to arrest this man or to pursue that crime. It would be quite wrong, and he can't do that. What the police commissioner can do, though, as the first elected representative, directly elected representative, to have a role in setting the budgets and the priorities of the police, I think all commissioners, if they conduct themselves properly, should build a degree of trust and respect with the police, and of course with the press, the media and the public. And that will give them immense authority. Look at Boris Johnson, for example. I mean, Boris Johnson, not from my party, and a lot of people find him a bit of a lad, but he has a serious side to him, and he certainly uses his position to try to have influence on matters which are not his job, such as the potential new airport. It's not his job to decide whether we're going to have a new national airport, but he has an opinion and he's making strong play of it. As police commissioner, I would make strong play of a number of issues to try to persuade other agencies, such as the Home Office, to change their rules.
So